Yeah, I still think this is probably one of the best TV show seasons I've watched. Because welcome back to the James Ramen Reviews for yet another episode. In today's episode, I'm actually giving you something slightly different on the channel because I'm actually going to be talking about the Stranger Things seasons as a way to build up towards, season 5 when it comes out in like 5 months from today because it's the 26th of June and it comes out November 26th. There's a whole trailer about it, and just for a bit of context here, Stranger Things is a show I have seen before, and I do remember really enjoying season one, which we're talking about today. I do not, I didn't remember, I didn't really like, season two and three. There's something about it, and then season four kind of turned the ship and it became better again. So with this rewatch, maybe things will change. Maybe I'll enjoy those seasons a bit more. You'll have to find out when I do those videos. But so, just so you know, I did really enjoy season one, and we're going to talk about does it actually hold up? I would give it out of 10, stuff like that, and I will mention a couple of things about what it is actually about because, this has actually been out since like 2016, so you've had all the time in the world to watch it. You've probably already seen the first season anyway, but I'm just going to give you a retrospective opinion on the show because, it's well deserved because, it's been a while since I've watched the show and there is so much time to watch it all, I'll be honest with you. So, what you've got here is this show that started it all, one of the very first Netflix shows that ever actually hit the platform. Netflix, we've got this 80s vibe, it's kind of like the Goonies, E.T., Alien, where it's the 80s and you've got these kids and they play Dungeons and Dragons, there's all of that. But what ends up happening is, I'm pretty sure it's like the first 5-10 minutes of the first episode. You've got this character called Will Byers, he ends up going missing. They don't really know what's going on, and then throughout the course of these 8 episodes, you start to see okay, there's little hints as to why he went missing, why did he go missing, where did he go missing, and all of that. And that's pretty much what the whole season is about. It's trying to find Will and where Will actually went, and there's definitely all of that. And so, for the first thing I will say is that this actually really does hold up because it does establish a storyline. There's characters, there's motivations, there's ideas, and everything pays off as you watch the final few moments of the last episode. So there's all of that. So the first thing you got to talk about here is that this simply has really good acting, especially for just young kids. Like they've got their own distinct personalities. Dustin is a really funny character. There's that one kid, that everybody likes, and then there's a kid where, like, Lucas, for example, he is unsure about 11 and they want to be able to help each other so that they can find Will. And I will say that Eleven's character is really good as well. But I will say that there is a few points where, especially in the first couple of episodes, it does start off a bit slow. It's a bit of like a suspension building where there's a lot of things going on, but they need to slowly introduce everything. So 11, the first few minutes of her, they aren't the most mind blowing things ever. But as we start to get deeper into the show, I think the show gets better the more you watch it, kind of thing, in my opinion. And especially because a lot of the characters they start to learn more about what's going on. And I really do like that how it kind of has this whole natural experience where they just learn as they go along. They don't know what to expect, and there is quite a few moments here where it's actually really unpredictable about how what's going to happen. Like obviously they have to find Will, but they don't really know much about it. So there's all of that, and I just think there's just really cool scenes with these characters that they just really know that there was something happening. And I will say as well, there's all of that. You can talk about the kids in 11 for days on end, but what I do really appreciate about the show is that you have Joyce and you've got Hopper, and they are just so dedicated to finding Will. I mean, there's even an episode in here called Holly Jolly where Joyce is going crazy. She thinks that Will is talking to her through Christmas lights, and it's like, oh wow, where is this going? And then it kind of develops from there, and all of that is really cool. And I do think that Jonathan is a really solid character in here, where he's just a guy that loves photography. He misses Will. He wants to know where he's went, so he tries to spy on the whole party with Nancy and Steve and Bob, but that night, Barb goes missing. She cuts herself on this beer bottle and it goes into the pool, and then she gets sucked under the pool, and they're like, oh, what the hell? But then in the meantime, you've got, Steve and Nancy having fun in the bedroom and all of that. And then you see just Jonathan taking photos. And then there's like the very next day or something like that in the show, you've got Steve going up to Jonathan and he destroys his camera. But what's really good about this is if you see that from the final episode, you start to see that, Jonathan actually gets his camera back through a Christmas present. So that was really cool how, Steve actually is one of the best characters in the show because he goes from this bully guy, misunderstood all that, but then he turns into this really nice guy towards the end of the show, towards the end of the season, I should say, and I do really appreciate that they actually take the time to develop these characters out and tell the story from there, and you could even, compare that to, and, say that about 11 as well, where she goes from saying yes and no to saying, like, friends don't lie, and then there's, like, a few other words she says, so they develop her character as well. And so there really is a lot to say here, but I will give this show about this season about a 9 out of 10. It's one of the best seasons of TV because it develops a storyline out. You know, everything actually matters. There's things going on. Things need to be resolved. Things need to happen. Otherwise, how would we know what's going to happen in the end? And I do really like that you've got the Demogorgon, but the Demogorgon isn't actually revealed until like 7 or 8 episodes into the show. So that's what's really, really good about it. And then when you get scenes where Joyce and Hopper go into the Upside Down, they find Will, they save Will, and it's all pretty much there from there and all that, and really good. And that is really interesting about the show as well, that they thought that Will died and they had this whole funeral for him. But no, it's a fake body, and they're like, oh no, what's going on? And then they managed to find Barb, and then Barb actually died in the Upside Down, but Will survived, and so there's all of that. There's quite a few things to talk about here, but that is what I would say about the show. Some really solid acting, some really cool music. Although I'm probably going to hear the theme song a million times over because the Stranger Things theme song is going to overplay as I start to watch the whole show again. But that's my review of Stranger Things season 1, my retrospective. That's the best way I can describe it. It's a good show with a lot of build up, a lot of characters, a lot of stuff that I really do enjoy about a show like this. So yeah, that's my review of Stranger Things Season 1. Stay tuned for more reviews like this, and stay tuned for when I'm going to be reviewing Season 2 and onwards, because this is my review, and I will see you in the next chapter of The Upside Down. Goodbye. Bye.